People's quirks and peculiarities can be both strange and interesting. For example, did you know that you can tell a liar by the way they draw the letter Q on their forehead? Or that there is no need to be afraid of black cats? Or the harmful effects of your favorite jokes on others? In this video, we explore 5 studies of weird quirks and peculiarities of human behavior presented by Richard Wiseman in his book, Quirkology. Number 1. Does astrology work? Do you regularly consult your horoscope? Are the predictions consistently eerily accurate? In spite of this, science has demonstrated that astrology isn't very good at foretelling the future. In an experiment, Richard investigated if astrology might be used to predict the stock market. He asked an astrologer, an investment expert, and a 4-year-old girl to select profitable financial ventures to invest. Unexpectedly, the astrologer was the least successful investor, losing 10.1% of the capital he invested. The average financial expert performed just marginally better, losing 7.1%. Surprisingly, the 4-year-old girl who made a random investment performed the best, losing only 4.6%. In addition, when the participants were asked to make a second round of investment, the child gained 5.8%, while the astrologer continued to lose 6.2%. Richard's impact experiment showed not only that astrology cannot foretell events, but also that the stars have no effect on our personality. Our behavior is influenced by our belief in astrology. Hans Eysenck, a prominent psychologist, tested over 1,000 pupils to discover who were extroverts and who were introverts. Students with extrovert astrological signs such as Aries and Leo rated as extroverts on the examination. The same was true for students born under introvert signs such as Virgo or Scorpio. However, Eysenck suspected that the students' knowledge of their signs significantly influenced their responses. Therefore, he conducted a second experiment, this time with youngsters, and the results demonstrated that there was no correlation between personality and astrological sign. As we can see, astrological forecasts are frequently incorrect, and even when we are accurate, we tend to subconsciously alter our behavior to make them appear accurate. Number 2. Are superstitions real? You are definitely aware that the number 13 is considered unlucky. From Friday the 13th to the doomed Apollo 13 space mission, the superstition that the number 13 is unlucky has persisted for centuries. However, is there any basis for such superstitions? In the 1880s, military veteran William Fowler founded the 13th Club in New York City. On the 13th day of each month, he would bring guests to a meal where they would test every possible superstition by opening umbrellas indoors, spilling salt on the tables, and crossing forks. Guests reported to no instance of bad luck as a result. In another experiment, Mark Levin, a high school student from the United States, conducted an experiment to determine whether the old wives' tale about black cats bringing bad luck was true. He tested whether a black cat may influence your luck while predicting the outcome of a coin flip. Mark divided the examination over 2 rounds. During the first, participants guessed whether a series of coin flips would result in heads or tails. Mark had cat trainers lead a black cat before the participants before the second round. However, the cat had no effect on the participants' luck, as their ability to call heads or tails neither improved nor worsened. It has long been believed among the medical community that a full moon increases the number of patients admitted to the emergency room. Researchers in the United States investigated this claim by examining a year's worth of trauma center records and compared them to the moon cycle. Unfortunately, they discovered no such increase to support this myth. Therefore, there is no need to worry about the next full moon. Given that many of these myths have been debunked, it's interesting that a lot of them still persist. Number 3. Are you a good liar? Did you find magicians interesting when you were young? You might still be amazed when you see a card trick or a disappearing act. This is fine, as long as you know that magicians are just good liars. In spite of what the people who answered an experimental survey said, lying is something that everyone does. Only 8% of these people who filled out the survey said they had ever lied, and it's likely that some of the 8% were telling themselves lies. As part of the study, the same people were asked to keep a journal of every lie they told. The results show that adults tell at least 2 big lies every single day on average. And it's not a big surprise that some people lie better than others. Here is a simple way to find out if your personality makes you more likely to be a good liar. Picture drawing a capital Q on your forehead without giving it much thought. If in your mind you drew the Q so that the tail pointed towards your left eye, making it easier for other people to read, you were a high self-monitor. People like this are very aware of how they make other people feel, and they are usually better at lying. So it's easier for us to lie than to find the truth, but it's not unusual for us to act in a way that makes no sense. Number 4, are human beings really rational? Have you ever done something and then asked yourself, what was I thinking? You might have gone shopping without thinking or gotten into a fight for no reason. Is there a scientific reason why these things happen? Context affects how people make decisions, which can lead to some pretty crazy things. In one study, researchers asked participants to choose between 2 options. In the first, people were asked to imagine that they went to a store to buy a £20 calculator, but right before they bought it, they found out that it would be on sale the next day for only £5. In the second scenario, they were asked to imagine buying a computer for £999 and then finding out it would be on sale the next day for £984. In both cases, the difference in price is £15, but 70% of the people who took part said they would wait for the sale to buy the calculator, but not the computer. Irrationally, people only regard a savings of £15 as important when compared to the overall price. Irrationality doesn't just happen when we are shopping, though it can also happen when we meet new people. It turns out that a person's name can lead to a lifetime of irrational reactions. Studies have shown, for example, that teachers are more likely to give a good grade to a student whose name is David than a student whose name is Hubert. The same thing can happen in college, where people with less common names can end up being alone. In the 1960s, psychologists even found that people with unusual names were more likely to have mental problems than people with more common names. But for those who can overcome the irrational responses, people with odd names are found to have a greater chance of finding fame. At the end of the day, a name like Benedict Cumberbatch is much easier to remember than Joe Smith, and being memorable is an important step toward fame. Number 5, is your favorite joke having toxic side effects? Have you heard the world's funniest joke? No person still living ever has. In a famous Monty Python skit, the military used it to make the enemy laugh until they died. Okay, but what would be the funniest joke if there really was one? When Richard was looking for the funniest joke in the world, he found that many people like jokes that make them feel better about themselves. In his search for jokes, he created a Laugh Lab, an online site where people could share their favorite jokes and rate those of other people. It was easy to see the results. The jokes that made us feel the best were the ones that made us laugh at how stupid other people were. Even if they aren't as bad as the ones in the Monty Python skit, the effects of jokes about being better than someone else can be very bad. Most of these jokes are based on generalizations, so in 1997, a psychologist named Gregory Mayall did a study in Canada to find out how these jokes can make people feel. He split a class into 2 groups. One group read jokes that didn't make fun of anyone in particular, while the other group read jokes that made fun of people from Newfoundland. After that, The two groups were asked how they felt about different people, such as the Newfoundlanders. The results showed that those in the group who had read jokes about Newfoundlanders thought much less highly of them than those who hadn't. People who are the target of these kinds of jokes can also lose confidence because of them. In another test, two groups of blonde women were asked to show how smart they were. Before the test, one group was told jokes that made blonde women look stupid. This group test scores were lower than those of the groups that did not get the jokes. So think twice before you tell another joke about being better than someone else. They not only lead to discrimination, but they can also be harmful. Don't take everything you hear at face value. A lot of myths, like those about astrology and bad luck, turn out to have nothing to do with our lives at all. On the other hand, some things like your last name or a joke can have big effects on your life and the way you think about yourself. Do you know of any weird and peculiar human behaviors that merit a study? Add your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, like and share for more of such content.